Welcome to Hip Hop Movie Club, where three old heads put their old heads together to vibe on some of the most memorable or forgettable hip hop themed movies of all time. And here's HHMC with your HHMCs, Boogie, JB, and Dino Wright.
On today's episode, this is a very special episode. We are elated to have on the air with us creator, producer, and storyteller Ronald Young Jr., also known as Big Ron. He is the host and producer of the Leaving the Theater podcast, as well as the Time Well Spent and Talking Loud and Saying Nothing shows. Dinah Wright and I had a great opportunity to meet Big Ron in February at the On Air Fest 2023 in Brooklyn, New York at the White Hotel. He was a very charismatic MC of day one, and I was like, we got to get this cat on the air so we can talk to him. What else should everybody know about you, Big Ron? Not to put you on a spot, but did I miss anything or just anything else you want to talk about?
No worries. Audio producer, storyteller, host. I've worked on a lot of different projects, one called Seizing Freedom. I work on the Black History Year podcast from Push Black. I'm working on a new project with Novel Media, which is based in the UK. And I have a new project coming out in June called Wait For It, spelled WEIGHT, which is talking about the ways in which we grapple with our weight and navigate through life dealing with that. I'm very excited about that show. But that's it. I'm a big television and movie head. I contribute to NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour, so I like that people like actually want to hear what I have to say about movies. So that's been pretty exciting, being a movie lover most of my life. So yeah, and I'm really happy to be here with y'all. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for coming on.
Nice.
We were talking about this before I turned the record button on. Talk to us about your earliest encounters with hip hop.
Okay, so mine is going to be a little complicated because I am a preacher's kid. And when I say that, I mean, I'm raised in the Pentecostal church. I'm still a part of the Pentecostal church. So we are like, tongue talking, believe in the Holy Ghost, church every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. Like we're at church all the time. And we weren't encouraged to watch movies, something that I love to do. And we certainly weren't allowed to listen to secular music. So all of my exposure to music would have been like on the fly. At the barbershop was where I heard probably the first time I heard Before I Let Go by Frankie Beverly and Maze. That was the first time I heard any of the other songs, even Celebrate by Kool and the Gang, or like any of those really good 70s, 80s classic songs. First time I heard those were, I remember sitting in the barbershop was the first time I saw Ludacris's Saturday. But no, the other one he does, Cadillac Grills, Cadillac, that the first time I saw that one, I saw that song was in the barbershop, and my dad didn't really care what was going on in the barbershop or what I was watching because we weren't going to be there very long. On the school bus, we had a radio. I used to listen to that. And then eventually one of the Christmases that came, my parents got my sister a stereo, and my sister started listening to the R&B and hip hop stations. And that's how I got introduced. Eventually I got a Walkman, and late at night I'm listening to Love Talk and Slow Jams. So I'm like listening to that. And that's like my first introduction to the hip hop world, I would say, was first through R&B. And then because R&B felt the closest to gospel at first, because I listened to a lot of gospel. I could tell you all about 90s gospel. If y'all want to talk about Donnie McClurkin, Kirk Franklin, all of that, I can tell you all of, yeah, I got y'all, man. Melodies from Heaven. I'm in there. You know what I mean? But I feel like when it came to hip hop, the closest thing to gospel at the time was R&B. But the next bridge for that, in 1997, you get Tupac dying, you get Biggie dying, and at that time at our schools we would have these talent shows. And I remember, like, I don't know why this stands out in my head, but one of the earlier songs I remember was this one group did for the talent show, they did Dear Mama by Tupac.
Wow.
And that song came on, and I was like, this song is, and I was in fourth grade. I'm like, oh, this song is amazing. Who is this guy? This is great, And then right around that time, Sean P. Diddy Combs, they took over hip hop at that time in terms of mainstream. And you get all of these songs. I'm coming out. That comes out. And now tell me who's hot, who's not, who's sell out the stores. Like that's all the stuff that I was introduced to. So then now, and the story comes to a point. Don't worry. So I'm listening to all that. I'm really enjoying this. And then, Will Smith comes out with Millennium, and I'm like, oh my God, Will Smith is such a good rapper. He's one of the best rappers I've ever heard. And I take that show on the road with my friends. Now, mind you, I'm listening to all of these albums under the cover of darkness, like away from my parents or at school. And I'm like, and they're having rap conversations at school. And I'm like, yo, man, you know who's a good rapper? Now, I just want y'all to think about what I'm saying now. In 1997, I'm a backpack wearing middle school kid walking up to people in a serious rap conversation. And I'm saying, yeah, but have you heard that new Will Smith, though?
Your credit's going, woo.
And yeah, it's like you can hear the record scratch in those moments. But at the time, I'm like, how are you not including Will Smith in your top 5 of rappers? How are you not including Will Smith in your top 5? And so it took a little bit more time. I'm saying like through my high school years, I started hearing other rap songs, hearing rappers that I liked, like hearing Jay-Z, Big Pimpin' comes out. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. Like this guy's good. Hearing Nas, like One Mic, all this stuff comes out. And it was really, to be honest with you, I was maybe like 21, 22 years old when I really started like listening to rap albums like hardcore. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorites and earliest was I went back and listened to Reasonable Doubt, and I'm like, this is an incredible album. I get it now. And this was after he had put out a Blueprint and all this other stuff. So I'd listen to Reasonable Doubt. That way, when the Black Album came out, I felt like I understood Jay-Z in a way that, a lot of other people didn't. So I was listening to Jay-Z. A friend of mine introduced me to Tribe Called Quest, and I listened to an album. I was like, why didn't anyone tell me about this? This is incredible. Like, this is like, the music is good. Like, the production is good, all of this. And so it was like, it was rather late. Like, I'm talking in the early 2000s is really when like my opinions on hip hop and I really started to crystallize. I know you said my earliest encounters, but like by this time I'm like 21, 22 years old, and I'm really getting a feel for what hip hop is to me. I still believe that R&B is of the hip hop family, and I could tell you all about R&B and what that means to me and what the sound is and how that's evolved. But specifically, if when we talk about hip hop at its origins, which is rapping, tagging, dancing, specifically the rapping, like that's really my journey and how it really became crystallized for me.
Nice.
That's an awesome story.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, we're a little bit older, so there's no shame with Will Smith. I discovered him in the late 80s as, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince before the TV show. And
yeah,
parents just don't understand. It was such a catchy tune and a funny video and a story. And everybody in my middle school was singing that. And, after Run DMC and the Beastie Boys, I mean, that was something that everybody was tuned into.
Yeah.
I think probably one of my favorite Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince songs is Brand New Funk. That song is amazing, and he flows on that. Like, lyrics just, he spits hard on that. I'm like, wow, that's my song.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I could put that on and zone out anytime.
You really can't like besmirch Will Smith's delivery, because in a lot of ways, I'm like, a music video, whatever, like song, he puts together good songs and you believe what he's rapping about. But the problem is what he's rapping about is mostly corny.
Yes, doesn't matter. Yes.
And it worked when his parents just don't understand, because it's like, yeah, mom, like that was like Rage Against the Machine, I'm sure, for y'all at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's Teenage Rebellion. It's always what it's very rock and roll.
Yeah.
And the other one that was big at the time was The Girls That Are Wearing Nothing But Trouble. That one too. With that, that's my song too.
with the I Dream of Jeannie hook. Yes.
I Dream of Jeannie, yep.
Yes.
Sample, yep.
Well, I was going to say too, a lot of, and what, if in my 20s, my introduction to hip hop was a lot of, Bad Boy, not really realizing that Bad Boy was stealing every single one of its samples from very popular 70s and 80s groups, which now, as in my 30s, I'm now going back and digging into those groups. So I've been listening to a lot of El DeBarge recently, because I'm like, listen to this. I'm like, oh, all of these songs are bad boy songs,
Yeah.
like all of them. And if you
Yeah.
you keep going back and finding those bits and samples where they turned one song into like something incredibly popular,
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's one of my favorite things about hip hop and what those producers were doing then.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Say what you will about Diddy, but he put some good songs together. First Craig Mack album is still a killer. I love it so much.
But like, not even just the original song too. They would flip it on a remix too, like and hit with a whole other sample. Like, wait a minute.
Yes.
And then,
yes.
And it wouldn't even be it wouldn't even just be like another sample, but then you got extra verses coming in. Like, wait a minute, guest appearances.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
Yep.
Yeah.
It hitting you from all
Like
angles.
he does. There's a song he did, "Kissing You" by Total.
Yes.
And it's two different songs. They say it's the remix. I'm like, this isn't like back then when they did remixes. Because now when they do, like at some point in the mid 2000s, they're like, a remix is someone decided that a remix is an extra verse.
Yeah.
And you add a rapper. That's a remix from now on. Nothing else that y'all are talking about. That's crazy. But like when Puffy was doing remixes, he was like, all right, we're going to make a new song and we're going to call it a remix because "Kissing You" has two different versions of the song.
Yes.
And that's what remixes were back then. It was like, oh, we got a remix for you. And it's like a brand new song. And I wish they would go back to that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there was several, there was a Biggie song with Kim, with Lil Kim, and I'm completely blanking on what it was. Get Money.
Yes.
No, it might have been Get Money. Or,
yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was another one,
That's
All
the
I
hook.
Needed. Yeah. But there's several
There's a couple
in which
versions.
it was like,
mm-hmm.
where you're like, this isn't the same song. Like, this is a different song.
Yeah, the hook, the whole different hook on it. But they saying Get Money, but the rest of the hook is different. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You could be as good as the best of them, or as bad as the worst. But don't test me.
But don't test me. Get Money. Yes.
I got that
like, yes,
upstairs.
what a brand new song. Yes.
So you may not know Boogie's a DJ by trade as well for many years. So
okay. So
he knows a lot of the different versions of various songs.
I love that. Oh man, you always need a music encyclopedia around, and I guess it's you, Boogie.
Boogie is if you listen to our catalog, he goes deep. He has the deep cuts that we may not know of.
It's crazy too because I was like before, like I kind of I'm like not really retired, but back in the 90s, I was outside.
Yeah.
I was outside. Like I was DJing in clubs and parties, cookouts back. Like I was hardcore in it. So like you're talking about the bad boy era in the 90s, I was doing those parties. Over
and over again, man. Well, see, now you got to hit the day party circuit, man, because everybody still wants to drink. They just don't want to do it at night anymore. Like I tell you right now, if you tell me we about to drink from like 1 to 4 p.m. and I could be home by 6,
right?
Let's do it. Let's go hard. You could drink and have your hangover in the same night. It's great.
For real.
And ready to go for work the next day.
Ready to go. Hydrated, drank the Pedialyte, ready to go.
I hit one like a week and a half ago, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what's interesting? That is a great business concept. As our generation ages, we're the first generation that has hip hop as our foundation. And Boogie just sent me this funny clip from Instagram. It was a retirement home, and they were dancing to Soulja Boy with the canes and walkers.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's going to be me at age 80 if we can hold up.
That's not it. It's not just going to be that. It's going to be like old folks' homes filled with people dancing to hip hop, R&B, like Britney Spears. All that stuff's going to be in there, and they're going to be having Mario Kart tournaments in there. You know what I mean? They're going to be playing like Tekken and Street Fighter and all of that. And that's what, instead of like watching the news, it's going to be like, no. Put the Wii on real quick. I'm about to get you in these hands real quick. Like we about to play NBA 2K for like 4 hours during the day. It's going to be fantastic. Are you kidding me?
Yep. That's so true. We're not watching Matlock. We're going to be watching, people.
It'll be Law and Order. It'll still be Law and Order SVU.
It used to be.
It'll never die.
It'll still be.
The reruns.
Yeah.
Just get it still going. There's like 400 episodes of just SVU.
Yep.
So it's like, My bad. I feel like I'm breaking your format.
No, not at all. No.
This is good.
Okay.
We're letting it flow. We're freestyling. So why don't we take it to the movies? Let's go to the movies. I enjoy your concept of leaving the theater and giving like the fresh impression of the movie you just saw. Are there any hip hop movies, like movies with hip hop actors or hip hop themes, that you left the theater and thought, "Whoa, this was hype," or "This was important"? Any come to mind?
So it's funny because when you said that, like I really had to start thinking about like hip hop movies I've seen recently, and they're all biopics, which
Yeah,
I'm not really that impressed with. In the case of most of them, because they are literally about hip hop, but I'm not necessarily impressed by them, especially because I have to walk into a theater and try to be convinced that this person was Biggie or this person was Tupac
yeah,
or these were. And I think the probably the one that was the closest to, I think it kind of goes off the rails towards the end, is Straight Outta Compton, which was it
yeah.
still was my favorite, but I liked it probably the most out of all of them.
Hmm.
So I had to kind of like dig back to really think about hip hop movies that had an impact on me. And I felt the first one I'm going to say, we'll use that as a decoy before I tell you my real one. Because the first one started to make me angry, not because I don't think it's a good movie about hip hop, but because I'm like, I feel like this face has been representing hip hop for a long time. And while I am a fan of this rapper, I don't know if this movie deserves to be like the hip hop movie that I say. But the first one that came to mind was 8 Mile with
Okay.
Eminem. And I was just like, all right, I love you, Eminem, but like, come on, it's 8 Mile. Like, this feels like a little too obvious of a hip hop movie. Then, of course, you can go like back in time and think about your Breaking and your Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo and all that stuff. Like, you can go through all of those. But one I think that kind of like slides under the radar is one that came out during, I like to call like the big era of black films. Back then we had Love and Basketball, which is probably another good choice, but that's more of an R&B movie than it is a hip hop movie.
Right.
But we have Love and Basketball. Say that again.
We'll start that podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, let me know when you're ready. I'm here. But yeah, you have Love and Basketball. You have The Wood. You have The Best Man. You have all of these like just very black movies that were coming out at the time. And
Yeah.
like, I mean, for most black folks, we were just waiting for whatever it was going to be next year. Who was going to be the person? Morris Chestnut, Tay Diggs, all of them were in it. This was another one with Tay Diggs and Sanaa Lathan. It came out in 2002 and it's called Brown Sugar. Now, Brown Sugar. What is it? Have y'all talked about this one before?
We have.
Okay, great.
We have an episode on it. Yes.
So, Brookie is like
great.
The president of the Sanaa Lathan fan club. If you didn't know.
Oh yeah, she still looks good. And did you see her on The Best Man on Peacock? She looks fantastic.
Absolutely.
Still the same. They all look the same.
Shout out to Sanaa Lathan, please.
Yeah, 100%. Wherever you are. Matter of fact, now, to be honest, shout out to Nia Long, because after what she went through with Old Boy, I'm like, listen, I've been available this whole time. Call me.
Call Big Ron.
I'll text you right now. Yeah.
Call Big Ron.
I'll never cheat on Nia Long. Are you kidding me?
No, if they had to be a Hollywood fiction.
Nia Long is
100%.
queen of the been fine for a long time thing.
Yeah, that somehow gets finer. Like, I mean, I saw her in the Best Man series, and I'm just like, what is this? What is this?
Yeah,
how are you still doing
regimen
this?
do I need to get on?
Yes.
Like, what am I trying to eat?
And the first thing they'll tell you, they'll be like, black don't crack. I'm like, yeah, man, but like, this feels like,
yeah,
like at least wrinkles. It's not even wrinkling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because sometimes it could look bad, but
yeah,
it's natural.
Yes, she
Shout
looks
out
like
to
I'm
her
like, I
team.
don't. Yeah,
Her
but
genes, both of them.
Brown Sugar. That's I won't go too deep into it because I know y'all already know about it. But that for me is kind of like the seminal. And I was also coming of age. I graduated high school in 2002, and it was a movie that I was able to go to the theater and see because like I was in college, I was away from my parents. I could just go see a movie, and saw it. Really enjoyed it, felt like I was having an experience. And I really and they don't really make movies like this anymore in the theater. They make them and they'll make them for cheap and put them on Netflix, and they won't be as good. But they'll make stuff like, but they don't really make stuff like this anymore. And I really just I enjoyed it. Like you get the Yasin Bey cameo back when he was Most Def. You get, I mean, not cameo, I mean he's in the movie, and this was during his run. He had a run during this time. He was in The Italian Job. He was in I think there was a couple of other movies he did.
Did he do a movie with J-Lo?
I think so, but he had like 5. Yes, no, was he in Out of Sight?
Was that
him? I thought it was somebody else.
No.
Let me ask my friend Google.
IMDb, tell us.
Let me ask my
Yeah, that's
I got Ving Rhames in that. I got George Clooney.
Oh,
I
maybe
got
I'm thinking of
Steve
Ving Rhames.
Zahn, Isaiah Washington. Did he cameo in it? Nah, he's not in this one.
no.
Okay, all right, he's not in this one. Okay,
Yeah, he was
But he
definitely in
had a
there.
run.
he did.
Yeah.
That's right. He did have a run. Yeah.
Yeah, like at that point, he was 16 Blocks. That's what I was thinking of.
Yes,
Okay.
But he was in 16 Blocks, Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Yes.
Galaxy, Something the Lord Made, which was on. And like for a while, we thought Mos Def was like about to be that dude. He had the same, his rise rivaled the rise of Dave Chappelle, and it also intersected because Mos Def was on Chapelle Show.
Regularly.
Because Chappelle had that run of because he had that run
Mhm.
of all those fantastic rappers rapping on his show.
Yes.
Fantastic
Mhm.
rappers rapping on his show. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I think there's a bunch of cameos in that movie, very enjoyable. That's probably one that I really left the theater being like, I liked it, even though Rotten Tomatoes didn't like it so much.
Well, the thing about that, it was like a love letter to the hip hop genre, which we're all about promoting the whole culture and the genre. And the way it was done was just a nice love story. I was critical of it as well, just because of the predictability of it. It was just so predictable that they were supposed to get together at the end, and I was like, okay, it's really sappy. However, this is one of Boogie's all-time favorites. He's the one that said, guys, we got to watch this one. Put it on the list. Let's watch it. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've watched that movie.
That's the thing about, and like when I review movies, I always try to separate how I feel about it from like just technically reviewing it. And I do think that there's the way that I feel about Brown Sugar and the way that it's executed are different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because the way I feel about it, it still means a lot to me for when it came out at the time. And I probably feel about it the way Boogie does. But I also, like, as a critic, like watching that, I'm just like, I mean, it was all right. You know what I mean? It's like very middle of the road of romantic comedy that does like, you have them on the cover together. We know where this is going.
Yeah.
There's no real conflict about them not being
Right.
together. What are we
Yeah.
talking about here?
Mhm.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Those are the kind of movies I think that nutritionally they don't have a lot of value, but they taste really
Yeah.
good. All you need is a bag of Doritos. I didn't get anything really substantive out of it, but boy, that was really delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed them. I'll go to the gym tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll watch a Kurosawa movie tomorrow, but
There you
today,
go. Yeah.
I'll
watch a documentary tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or big old donut. Yep, a big old donut is a good example. I gotta have it right now.
So you did mention Mos Def, Yasin Bey, his trajectory as an actor, and so what other hip hop artists do you follow and think who were successful crossing over from the silver mic to the silver screen?
I mean, when you think about rappers turn actors, you really have to just consider the rappers that were so good at acting that you forgot that they were rappers. And when they came out with albums later, they were a little worse at rapping. when I say that, like, and because here's the thing that gets me. Like when I first thought this, I was like, well, obviously we're going to talk about Ludacris, right? But like Ludacris was a guy that I think was a better rapper than he was an actor, and then got more acting gigs for some reason, and then went back to rapping and somehow wasn't as good of a middle of the road rapper as I thought he was in the early 2000s. Then when he came out with albums like in the teens, you know what I mean? I'm just like, I don't know if this is it. I think Method Man gets an honorable mention here, obviously, because like, you know, he shows up in things and you believe him when he shows up. I mean, his run in The Wire, honestly, if he had only done that, I think would have been significant enough to say that like he's here and he's done a great job. Like he fit right in with the cast of The Wire. I guess maybe it was because of his hip hop background that allowed him to do that, because they were picking up a lot of folks from the streets of Baltimore to be in the show, which is a whole nother thing. But yeah, like maybe him. I think Mos Def has to be up there because of his body of work. Probably the two that I think about the most are Common, who Common really learned his lane and just stayed in it. Like if he was in a movie called and I want to say this is in the early 2000s, it was Acid. No, it was 20. It was with Jeremy Piven, Ryan Reynolds, Chris Pine. Smoking Aces.
Yes,
Aces.
yes,
Smoking Aces. Yes.
Which, if there's kids listening to this podcast, go back and watch that. That is a movie that if it would have came out on Netflix, it would have been in Netflix's best movie at the time. Granted, I don't think it did so well, like Rotten Tomatoes wise, and with the critic score, it also didn't do that well in theaters. But listen to this. Listen to this cast real quick. Ben Affleck, Ryan Reynolds, Andy Garcia, Chris Pine, Jeremy Piven, Ray Liotta. Like all of those folks were in this movie with significant roles.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Jason Bateman is in this movie before he's really Jason Bateman. Like you can scroll down. Joel Edgerton is in this movie. Matthew Fox from Lost is in this movie. You know what I mean? And Common is in this movie. And Common has a great role that he plays in this movie. More recently, Common was in John Wick 2. Chapter 2, and he has an outstanding featured scene with John Wick. I mean, with Keanu Reeves. That was, I really enjoyed. But if I have to go to the one that I think is doing the best job, as in he got this role, he sat down in this role, and now he is this role. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know anything about his rapping anymore. Mr. Ice-T as Finn Tutuola in Law and Order SVU, which all of a sudden we're back talking about Law and Order SVU again. But in terms of when he started in that, he had like a little ponytail on there, and he was still rapper turned actor Ice-T. And now we look at him, and the people who have, like, Law and Order has been on so long. There are people who have been watching Finn Tutuola on this show for years that will never have heard a rap lyric come out of this man's mouth. And I know that has to bother y'all because he's one of y'all's. He's one of y'all's rappers. And now y'all are looking at him and being like, yo, he hasn't cussed once in his whole job is just to be the audience foil. Oh, you mean this guy likes to diddle kids? Like that's his whole job. And he's living in that lane now. And I know that's not like necessarily Emmys or Oscar winning actor, but in terms of crossing over, like, who remembers he was a rapper? Who remembers this guy's a rapper except that his name is Ice-T in the credits?
Yeah. He crossed over and never crossed back.
Right.
Never
his
came
last
back.
album was 2006.
Yeah. That feels sooner than I thought.
They're college kids that weren't born yet.
He was in both of the Breakin' movies, right?
Yeah.
Breakin' and Breakin' 2.
Yeah.
He was a DJ.
Oh,
and we spoke about this on a prior episode. The great irony is that with Body Count, when he went metal and he came out with that Cop Killer song, and then he has his whole life as a cop / detective. And that's a bit of irony there.
And then you got to look up his net worth to say, has this paid off for you? And it has. He has a net worth of $65 million. This has paid off for him. I don't know. Because he gets $250,000 an episode for SVU. I'd never rap again. You would never hear me rap.
Why would you have to? You wouldn't have
to. Never. Yeah. I'd come out with songs where I just said yeah on the mic just over and over and over.
Yeah. Man, he gets paid that much money. He goes home to Coco. He's good.
Light your arm off.
And his following on Twitter is legendary. Every now and then he has to let a cat know that he's not about that life. And he'll straighten him out. And that's always funny to see. But man, yeah, you're right. He's in his lane.
Yeah, 1.9 million followers. Like that, he's money. Like he's good. You don't ever go back to rapping after that. You know.
I wonder how many of this younger generation also know LL Cool J as an actor more so than a rapper.
And I completely okay. So in terms of good acting, LL Cool J has done some great acting in his time acting. And you're right. This is another one that's on CBS, found a home, and just put on that stupid hat and just wears it all the time. And is always going to have abs forever. It's just going to have abs till he dies.
Yeah. You got to throw my girl Dana up in there. Queen Latifah's in that group too.
Another one. Like, you know what? And these are all rappers from the same era. Yeah. You're talking about rappers that like, they were like basically as 90s rap, like it was petering out in the early aughts. All of these folks switch their
Yeah.
images. Because now there's people that look at Queen Latifah and be like, yeah, we know she did something, but she's now on The Equalizer. But like, think about her run of, she has that movie with Common
Yeah,
called
Just
Just
Right.
Right. It's a romantic comedy.
Love that
Yes.
movie.
Yep.
And this was before she came out.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? So it's like she had a whole thing on Beauty Shop, like built a whole like industry off of just being like, I think these were honestly, I think the best, because we could argue about who's the best actor, and I think that's a different conversation to say who is the most successful. And I would say every rapper turned actor that is successful are people that just bought into what they were sold, and which was that like, hey, I'm gonna make you $1 million. And Queen Latifah was like, yeah, whatever. I'll do Just Right. I'll do Beauty Shop. I'll do Taxi with Jimmy Fallon.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yep.
Last Holiday.
Yeah, I'll do Last
My wife
Holiday
loves Last
with Kate
Holiday.
Winslet.
What a great movie.
Is Kate Winslet in that? Am I tripping? Or
Which
am I thinking
one?
of something else?
La-
I said Last
That's her
Holiday. I don't
LL.
think that's the right one.
LL
Yeah,
Cool
you're
J.
right.
She goes
LL
to
Cool
that
J.
hotel in
Yes.
Europe,
Yes.
hanging out with Giancarlo
Yes.
Esposito.
Yes.
She was just in Hustle, where she plays Adam Sandler's wife. And Hustle's not bad. Hustle's not a bad movie.
I
I
liked
want to
it.
like, yeah, I was like, this was surprising for it to be on Netflix. But yeah, like it's, and honestly, now that we're saying Queen Latifah, I'm sitting here looking at her filmography, and I kind of think that she has some of these dudes I mentioned before beat in terms of just like amount of work done.
Yeah. She was in Chicago.
But I think we gotta look at it.
singing.
Mhm.
Like what?
Mhm.
But you know, we
She's
got to
in a-
look up her net worth.
She's in a movie with Will Ferrell called Stranger Than Fiction. You guys seen this movie?
I haven't.
Yeah.
Terrific movie. It's one of these like serious roles for Will Ferrell, and she plays. She has one of the. She's a character on there, and terrific movie. And she plays a really great literary agent, kind of like just helping Emma Thompson get her story written. It's just so fun. It's like, wow, like Queen Latifah just dropped in and killed it and cashed that check and went on to the next successful project.
Yeah.
She's still cashing that check. Her net worth is $85 million.
Yeah.
So you
Hallelujah.
got Ice-T at 65. You got Queen Latifah at 85. You got LL Cool J at 120. So
Not bad.
they all did the right thing.
Success.
And Queen Latifah was so influential and empowering to women in the late 80s when she came out with Ladies First, UNITY, saying,
Yes.
you can't call us a B. When a lot of the music that was coming out was degrading to women. And she stood up and said, listen, we're going to stand right up. And she'll get in anybody's face back then. And I credit Fab Five Freddy on Yo MTV Raps for putting her on a lot and giving her that exposure, because that was awesome. And then you see it spawned all these acts that you see today, Cardi B's and Nicki Minaj, and even prior to that, Missy Elliott. Like, she was a forerunner of that.
Oh yeah.
I will say that there was so if you go like, if you name that in order, there's a split that happens because Missy Elliott is the fork that creates, basically you're going to say, because I'm like, before, if you have a road that you're walking down, you have your MC Lights, you have your Queen Latifahs, you have your Debrats, all of them that are kind of like walking that road. And then Missy Elliott comes along and creates a fork. Where I'd say like, because slightly before that, you had Off the Beaten Path, you have Lil Kim, who's like doing this thing that it's like, I don't know about this. This is like really sexual. What are we doing over here?
Yeah.
Then you have Missy come in and say, well, I can be sexual, but I'm also going to be like, I'm going to rap. I'm going to do skill. And I'm going to make good music, all of that. And you're right. Then after that, all of a sudden you have that thing that Lil Kim was doing. All of a sudden, like Foxy Browns, all of those that were like in this weird area, they all start showing up real, like Nicki Minaj. You got Meg Thee Stallion. You got Cardi B. You got Lotto. Now there's so many to name. There used to be like two or three at a time.
Yep.
Now there's like seven. Like there's Ice Spice and all these other ones,
Big Lotto.
like that are showing up. You know what I mean? And it's like, and now there's like so much for women. And you're right. You go back and it was like you could have one. You could have Light as a Rock, or you could have UNITY, and that is it. You get nothing else.
We just did a recent episode on the Netflix biopic of Roxanne Shante, and if you haven't seen that, I would check it out, because she was even earlier than Latifah, but that was before hip hop was more mainstream,
Yeah.
and she was taken advantage of by a lot of folks. And she was only a precocious teenager at the time.
Yeah.
So her story is interesting. And I remember growing up, one of the very first hip hop songs I heard was the Roxanne, the real Roxanne, and there were a bunch of response songs back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up close to Philly, listening on Power 99. They would play those at night, and I was like, "This is so creative." And she was something else too.
I was first introduced to her on the popular rap series of the early aughts, Beef. I don't know if you remember those. There was Beef DVDs. 1 and Beef 2. Yeah, like you go back and be like, "Yo, what was the fact checking on these?" I mean, it was very compelling to get it right. But if you go back, you're like, "All right, did you just get a bunch of people who were mad at each other in a room that just like, yeah, you know what? I hate Common. He's been trash this whole time." You know? But yeah, like that was the first time I was introduced to Roxanne.
Yeah, that's my girl right there. I love Roxanne Shante.
So she has a recurring show on Rock the Bells.
Have a Nice Day. Yeah, with her and DJ Cool V. They're on from, I think, 4 to 7. Yeah.
On satellite. Is that on Sirius?
Yeah.
Or
Sirius, yeah.
On the Rock the Bell station.
Yeah, I listen to them on my rides home.
We were saying she really didn't get her flowers because she was exploited, and the media wasn't ready for that at the time, and she faded out, not really of her own, but just by necessity. There was no money in the business, and she had nowhere to turn.
Yeah, she made that Big Mama song, but she just let loose on everybody, and then that was her curtain call. She was like, "All right, I'm out."
It's like, how long do you like, especially, and I think that's like the skill. Think about everybody we named, and like Common, Mos Def, Queen Latifah, LL Cool J, like all of them. I think the skill is like the exploitation that happens in the music industry is always bad. You know what I mean? But it's I think the game that all of these musicians and rappers are playing, and now it's a harder game even than it was in the 80s and 90s, in the early 2000s. But a lot of them that were just like, anyone who came to the conclusion, I can't rap forever, I have to do something else. And any of them that says, I have to do it now, and were then called corny for being a cop on television, or for, doing the romantic comedy or whatever, that were called corny. All of those people have houses. Mm-hmm. Everyone else that like tried to stick to it and say, I'm gonna do one more, I'm gonna do the big FU, like curtain call or whatever. Most of those people you don't hear anything about. Like they could be like, you could be working with them in a cubicle somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, and it'd be like, yeah, this is an interesting story for you, but like, why is Jay-Z a billionaire and you're not? And I think it's part of the game of knowing like, okay, I've done my great albums. I now have to use this crowd to go do something else now, because
that makes a lot
you
of
can't
sense.
do it forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Diversify that portfolio.
Yeah.
Yep.
I immediately thought about you talking about the Chapelle sketch with Wu-Tang.
Yes.
Yeah, Wu-Tang Financial. Oh God. Yeah. But nah, they really got to. It's like, it's not a game.
Had to drop that one in there.
I love it.
Oh man. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, that's classic. I have to put that in the show notes, the Wu-Tang Financial. It's so brilliant. Woo. Well, Ron, we don't want to keep you too long. I know we could talk for hours, I think. We definitely want to tell our listeners to check you out at ohitsbigron.com. Is there anything else you talked about in the beginning a little bit, but tell us again, where can we find you coming up next? What's up on the horizon for you?
All right. So first of all, everybody go on Instagram right now. Go on TikTok, go on Twitter. Follow at ohitsbigron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. Follow me on all of those platforms. This is the best way you can find out the news that's going on with me. And then also subscribe to Leaving the Theater. It is a great podcast about television and film. The guys mentioned it already. I review movies as I'm walking out of the theater. You get a very fresh take, or as I'm sitting on the couch after just finishing it up. So I'm very excited. We just dropped the John Wick Chapter 4 episode that's in the feeds right now. You can get that. And if you want a quick preview of my review of that, liked it. A little too long, just a little too long, a little too long this time, but I liked it. But yeah, check me out there. Got a new show coming out called Wait For It. That's coming out in June. So stay tuned for that. We'll be dropping a trailer hopefully in early May. But yeah, I'm working, grinding. And again, I really appreciate y'all inviting me to be a part of this.
Thanks for doing it.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate
This is
it.
so fun.
Thank you, Ron.
All
Yeah,
right.
we can do another convo like this.
Yeah.
I'm around.
Hip Hop Movie Club is produced by your HHMCs, JB, Boogie, and Dino Wright. Theme music by Boogie. Check us out on TikTok and Instagram at Hip Hop Movie Club. Shout out to you listeners. Thanks for tuning in.